Cesar.
Yes, I don't know if they're on here.
This one's number one.
Yeah.
You got this on? Okay. I'll give it to Tim. Tim starts.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm honored to be here speaking with you today. Such a beautiful campus and also such an important topic. My name is Tim Lee. I'm a Chief Information Security Officer of City of Los Angeles. Joining me today from our team, we have Daniel Clark Lee, our Security Operations Manager. And we have Cesar Alvarado, we're a Security Governance Manager. And we have Sydney Dawn. She's making significant strides as a security analyst intern in City of Los Angeles. So this morning, our objective is pretty simple. Just to offer you insider view of what cybersecurity operation looks like in the context of second largest city in the nation. So in the end, you will have some ideas of what's the cybersecurity organization structure and then what's the day-to-day security operation, how do we mitigate threats and identify risk, that kind of thing in the end. Pretty straightforward and simple. So before I dive into the today's talk, I want to give you a very short background on City of Los Angeles. People know about LA, sunshine, fun, and then landmarks like Hollywood, Universal Studio. But not a lot of people know City of Los Angeles also is one of the top target cyber attack in the West Coast. And our security team is handling analyzing over 1 billion security logs per day. And we are also tackling about 1 million attacks on the public website, 527,000 social engineering attacks monthly. And we are handling about 650 million monthly cyber intrusion attempts. So this is the scope of our City of Los Angeles cybersecurity operations. But the reason is simple, why we are the most targeted. Because City of Los Angeles, we have our world's 6th busiest airport. We have our busiest container port, Port of Los Angeles. We have high profile police department, LAPD, and we have a critical infrastructure like Department of Water and Power. You will hear from our colleague, Mike, about talking about their security. So we have a critical infrastructure supporting 4 million residents. And we have 43 departments and today is about 50,000 full-time employees. And we have handling a lot of highly sensitive data, public safety and the citizen data. So that's the scope of City of Los Angeles cybersecurity. So we need a good and effective strategy to protect the city critical infrastructure and also the cybersecurity program. But I want you to know, there's 4 key elements in a good cybersecurity strategy. So when you look at the cybersecurity strategy, you want to look for these 4 key elements. The first, you got to identify what are the cybersecurity challenges that you want to address, right? After that, you want to come up with a roadmap. That's your framework or roadmap of how you're going to tackle or address the cybersecurity challenge you just identified. And then third is you want to have an effective strategy execution plan that need to be coherent. So it needs to be coordinated among the different teams. And then last but not least, you got to have a continuous monitoring and constantly adapting to the new cyber environment or cyber threat and attack threats. So these are the 4 key elements that you want to look for when you talk about the cybersecurity strategy. So let's go into what's these cybersecurity challenge that City of Los Angeles is facing today. As you know, the ransomware is always on the top. The trends that you are reading on the news, ransomware will still be in the top threat categories in future years. The second will be the human risk, right? You heard a lot about human is the weakest link. So one user click on the phishing can become a major data breach. As a matter of fact, statistics show that about 96% of the major data breach are starting as a user clicking on the phishing link. So human is the weakest link, and that's the human risk, and that's the challenge that you need to address. How do you transform the human risk to the human as a risk to the human as a solution? That's the challenge that you need to address. Another thing is the advanced persistent threats, so APT. So especially the large cyber criminal organization and state sponsor, these attacks, they are more and more sophisticated, more and more coordinated, financially strong, they are unpredictable, and they are persistent, right? So security team need to sleep, but they are coordinated across the globe, so they don't sleep. They constantly try and poke in on your door and then finding for vulnerability to attack. These are the really critical challenges that City of Los Angeles is facing, especially the state-sponsored attacks. The other one is the attack surface expansion. So you understand the attack surface, especially during the pandemic. City of Los Angeles, from less than 500 work from home employees to overnight increased to the 28,000 work from home. So now your traditional security concept or the perimeter security is no longer adequate, right? So like in your textbook, you will learn in your class, like you identify your border and then put the firewall at the border to protect your inside your network. That's no longer adequate. And the concept of insider and outsider is no longer clear. It's all blurred. So a lot of insider become an outsider. Now outsiders are getting into your insider. So attack surface expansion and your points of vulnerability and points of attacks are also growing. And the other ones are the challenge is the IT and OT convergence. You will hear from Mike from Department of Water and Power, City of Los Angeles, and many departments running a lot of operational technologies. That's the SCADA sensors. These are the sensors, even though they are not a full-blown computer, but they're connected to your network. And if they have a vulnerability, they can use that, get into that sensor and disrupt your critical infrastructure. So convergence of IT and OT security, that's another challenge that City of Los Angeles is facing. The last one is supply chain risk management, right? You have so many vendors and there's so many tools and so many sensors that running on your network that you have no idea how they interconnect each other and how do they protect and what are the vulnerabilities they bring into your network. That's supply chain risk management. So these are the challenges that we are addressing City of Los Angeles. So how do we tackle it? We got to come up with the roadmap and framework. So second key elements of the good cybersecurity strategy. So what City of Los Angeles did is we adopt the NIST cybersecurity framework. I'm not sure anyone familiar with the NIST cybersecurity framework. So NIST cybersecurity framework is the framework with the 5 key domains, right? Identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. And then that will protect across the machine, human data, application, and network across the City of Los Angeles. And in each category, you want to have either tools, technologies, or process procedures to protect for each category. For example, in identifying, do you have a good IT inventory that you know what you are protecting? You need to identify those assets. Identifying critical assets. What assets are the critical? What assets are the regular? So this is the roadmap and framework that we, City of Los Angeles, adopt, and that's our roadmap to address those challenges. And we implemented the security tools, technologies, process, procedure to address those challenges. And then we will see this NIST Cybersecurity Framework 2.0 at the one category called govern. Governance is the one, remember, one of the key elements, the continuous monitoring and adapting to the new cyber threat environments. So govern is the one that continues doing the continuous monitoring, assessing, and then change or adapt your cyber strategy and program to meet mitigate the new cyber threat environment. So that's the strategy and roadmap. So you heard about from Zanzi or Morris Chan, without strategy, execution is aimless, and without execution, strategy is useless. So I'm talking about the strategy. If cybersecurity to be successful, you need a balance between a good strategy and a very effective execution. So I will hand it over to Cesar, and he will talk about the security governance. And that's one of the key component of the strategy execution. So Cesar.
Thank you, Tim. Hello, everyone. I would like to build on a little bit more on what Tim explained about creating a coherent security strategy. I want to dive into how do we go from this strategy, how do we bring it up, bring it to life, and choosing the right tactics, the right steps that closely align to our strategic goals. The group that I work for, the cybersecurity governance section, I think that in this context is very important. One of the things that we do is execute this strategy by developing, implementing, and monitoring policies and procedures that closely align to the new cybersecurity framework, as Tim was explaining. We also do cybersecurity training, and but today I just want to focus a little bit more on what we do to address human risk. A cybersecurity vendor, a very trusted cybersecurity vendor that we work with, recently released this paper that is very important. It says that 71% of employees that work in different organizations, they work at they participate in risky actions. This it could be from reusing passwords, such as using their Facebook password in one, using a Facebook password, reusing that same password that they use in their Facebook account, they use it on an email account, and so this is a bad thing. Since attackers know this, they could use things such as password spraying, which once they compromise one password, for example, your Facebook password, they can use that, and they know they can go around other tools or platforms that you use and use that password to see if they can compromise that account as well. These employees also click on suspicious links from emails that are suspicious. They also share their passwords with other people that they don't trust. And so what our group does is that we try to identify this type of risk, human risks, and educate and give the tools that our employees need to so that they are able to counteract this type of attacks. Another thing that I wanted to talk on this slide is that it's challenging. As you can see here, that there's millions and millions of emails every month. For example, toad messages, telephone-oriented attack delivery messages, which is really just a simple phishing email that do not contain any links, do not contain any malware. It's just a plain phone number. It could be in text, it could be on an image. And so what they're hoping for is that the employee calls this number. Once they call, they will walk that employee into going to a website and downloading malware to their computer, or maybe they will walk this employee into going to a different website, downloading a file that contains another link, and they click on that link and takes them to another website that tries to steal their credentials. So what do we do to address this human risk? And in the city of Los Angeles, we have a program called We Secure LA. And we have different types of activities that we do during the year. One of them is the Data Privacy Week, which we did at the end of January, and where we try to educate them on, hey, how to safeguard their data, what they should do, what type of information they should be sharing or they shouldn't be sharing. We also do office hours, which are presentations during the year that are specific about cybersecurity. And we do phishing simulations. When they click on this type of phishing, well, we send those, it's a fake phishing email. We try to educate them, right? They don't know, they think it's coming from outside. They click on the link, and once they click, we kind of take that moment to educate our users. If they click on it, they will see a message that says, "Hey, you shouldn't be clicking on these links," and we take them to videos where we try to educate them to make better choices next time. Other things that the We Secure LA program that we do is that we send newsletters during the year. Every 2 months, we send a newsletter as we are reading documents, as we know of new attacks coming out, as our integrated security operations center figures out of or notices new campaigns of emails. We could send these newsletters. And you see the one on the left right there. It's the one that we are sending in March. And the one all the way to the right is another one that our integrated security operations center noticed that we receive an increase of this type of emails. So we created this alert really quick and sent it to all our employees so that they are aware not to be interacting with these type of emails. Now, phishing exercises, these are the last two that we sent. The one on the left is the one that we sent around Christmas time. And the one in the middle is the one that we sent in February around Valentine's Day. After we send these phishing exercises, we always follow it up with another email telling them, do you recognize this email? And for the last one, for the edible arrangement one, we got a lot of comments. And you can see the comments there. And this might sound a little mean to some of them, but this is one thing that we know attackers try to work on. For example, they on phishing emails, they always have the sense of urgency, or they will try to work with your feelings, right, to make you click on that link. We also do training. We do a more general training, mandatory training every year to all our employees, and we also do a more targeted training to certain groups. For example, a Department of Office of Finance that they work with payroll. So when we try to do a more targeted training for them that it's called a PCI training, which kind of tells them on how they should be, what to watch out of this type of emails that are being coming out, and just more targeted that's towards them. In the month of October, we go all full with lots of activities for our employees. We send newsletters. Every week we have presentations from big names out there from Department of Homeland Security, FBI, and vendors that are very well-known vendors for cybersecurity. And we invite them to come every week to give presentation to our employees about topics related to cybersecurity. We incentivize them with prizes so that they participate on all these activities. And you can see there on the image on the right, we have our Cyber Champ of 2023 who won an iPad. To conclude, I was just talking about human risk. what do we do? City of Los Angeles, we have this program to educate them so that they know the type of risks that are out there. We give them the tools, for example, to send us, if they have an email that they are not sure that it's a phishing email, with a click of a button, they can share that email to us, and we can analyze it and automate a response to them. And finally, what we try to do is, you know about firewalls, right? In the technical aspect, the firewall is like a security guard that controls who goes in and who goes out uh, on certain behaviors. So what we try to do on the human side is that we try to build a wall, a human wall that help us be a firewall for the city of Los Angeles. And with that, I'll hand the microphone to Daniel.
Thank you, Cesar. All right. My name is Daniel Clark-Lee. I'm the manager of the Integrated Security Operations Center for the City of Los Angeles. As Tim's already talked about it a little bit, we are one of the second largest cities. We have over 43 different departments with 35,000 employees. We have thousands and thousands of public-facing websites. We process billions of events, security-related events per day. But really, the Integrated Security Operations Center, we take all these other security operations centers, these security people throughout the city of Los Angeles. We bring them all together under one roof and we integrate them in. We have some much larger departments, like our next speaker is from Department of Water and Power. We also have the Department of the Los Angeles World Airports and the Port of Los Angeles as well. Those are some of our larger departments. But then we even have smaller departments like Department of Neighborhood Empowerment, the Department of Aging. These departments are much smaller than some of these other departments. They may not have a lot of security folks on their team. So really what we do is we integrate them in and we provide some of the general cybersecurity services for them. And you can kind of see from the infographic how we do a lot of that. We take a lot of the threat intelligence, we take a lot of the situational awareness, a lot of the events and logs, we aggregate them all together, and we're looking for specific anomalies. But really the biggest thing that I want to kind of talk about is when we talk about what is a security operations center, really what we're talking about is the security operations center is the blue team people, as opposed to what a lot of people get for training and a lot of people are familiar with, which is more red team activities. In the Security Operations Center, we focus more on what's called blue team. So as opposed to offensive security that a red team would be doing, we would be doing more defensive security. A red team might be performing ethical hacking, trying to penetrate systems, whereas we're dealing more with identifying vulnerabilities, looking at vulnerabilities from other security researchers, validating them, and trying to identify and patch those vulnerabilities. You can kind of see from the infographic here, at the top, we have the red team. They're trying to get to those goods at the bottom there. And us, the blue team, we're really the dam that's trying to hold back all these types of attacks, all these people. Luckily, the red team normally is someone we work with very closely. We bring them in a lot of times to do penetration testing, to do these exercises and this type of stuff. And then we work really closely with them. So I'm gonna just spend a little bit of time to talk about some of the tools that we deal with as a blue teamer in the Security Operations Center. After that, I'll go into some more detail of answering some questions. Like the number one question we get asked is, how do I get started to really get experience to be kind of more on that blue team side? A lot of the education experience in schools is focused more on red teaming, offensive security, that type of stuff. But really, a lot of what people are hiring for those other positions, those are going to be blue team jobs. Those are going to be jobs where you're going to be sitting at a desk, trying to protect systems, trying to perform a lot of that stuff. And it's difficult a lot of times to get the specific education that you need for it too. So really understanding what kind of tools a blue teamer might use, get experience in those tools. One of the things that when we're interviewing people we've identified is there's a lot of kind of gaps between skills that people are learning in school and what skills they're learning from on the job and experience. And sometimes when you guys are applying for jobs, you may identify that. You may get people that deny you and say, well, you don't have any actual experience, so I don't want to hire you. Or you'll see in these jobs, they'll ask for like 2 to 5 years of experience in a security operations center. So really, if you have this experience working with these tools, a lot of times hiring people and interviewing, they'll be more acceptable as long as you know what these tools are, you have some experience with them. A lot of these tools have open source equivalents, and there's things that you can use that really teach you how to do this. So first, of course, everyone knows antivirus software. Antivirus software has changed a lot over time. It's come up with a lot of different names. They call it next gen antivirus, NGAV. The next phase was kind of EDR tools, which is endpoint detection response tools. You'll also hear people talk about XDR. XDR is a newer term. That's basically the next evolution of EDR. It's looking at bringing in logs and integrating in security events and those type of things to be able to do detection and response, not just on endpoints, but on what they call everything, or X. A couple of tools that are very commonly used by a lot of industry professionals for these type of EDR tools would be CrowdStrike, SentinelOne, Carbon Black. You can see over here, we have some dashboards from Carbon Black that show kind of what you'd be looking at from a blue teamer or from a security operation perspective. You'd be looking at alerts, you'd be looking at things that are triggering as potential alerts. A lot of times these alerts, they'll kind of weight them. They'll say some alerts are high, some of these alerts are critical, some of these alerts are just informational level alerts. Besides endpoint detection response tools, the next one we use a lot is email security tools. One of the #1 ways attackers are trying to get into people's network is to compromise the users. Cesar's kind of touched on it a little bit too. The human risk is always that kind of one that we have to worry about. So there's a lot of different email security tools. A lot of vendors have their own specific tools that they have in there. And then there's some other ones that you can layer on top of there. So vendor specific tools would be like things through Google Workspaces or Microsoft 365. Some things of email security would be things like Proofpoint, Mimecast, a lot of those tools. Those tools are made to identify those malicious threats, those malicious emails, and to either warn the users that this could be a potential email. Sometimes it's a pop-up banner on the email. Sometimes it'll just outright block the emails or put them in a specific folder that's either like a quarantine folder or something like that. The third tool we use a lot inside of the Security Operations Center is a malware analysis tool. We like to use a lot of automated malware analysis tools. There's a lot of free ones out there. Just be careful when you're using these free ones, because a lot of times when you're submitting samples or files to those, people can actually go into those tools. They can download those files and see them. So if you just uploaded a document with a bunch of sensitive information, you just probably leaked a whole bunch of data, and it could be something very bad. It also gives attackers information about your systems, things like that too. So a lot of times, if you're working in a security operations center, we would navigate more towards paid solutions like VMware, Falcon Sandbox, as opposed to the open source ones like any.run or VirusTool. So always make sure you guys are using caution with those ones. These tools, what they do, they give us a lot of things, indicators, stuff that we can hunt for, stuff that we can identify if we're looking for specific malware. Because as I'll go into it a little bit later, whenever we look at malware, we look at things, we like to look at it in depth. We like to look at a lot of the different layers. So yeah, our email security tool may have blocked this malware being delivered from this specific email, but maybe there's other emails we didn't identify or that got through to the users. So you want to make sure, like say the users didn't reach out to this badsite.com or any of these other sites that are hosting this malware. So I know I'm going fast here. I'm trying to make up for some of the lost time we have here. So I'm just going to breeze through a lot of these ones. Vulnerability scanning tools. We have this one is kind of an overlap with what the red team does. A lot of red teamers will use these same vulnerability scanning tools. Open source version would be OpenVAS or Redbone Security, Greenbone Security, sorry. And Qualys, Nessus, Burp Suite. These are all kind of common tools that we use to identify vulnerabilities in systems. You can see a screenshot there in the upper right of OpenBAS. Really, once we identify these vulnerabilities, a red teamer or an attacker would use these vulnerabilities in order to provide, like to do follow-up attacks or to know what specific vulnerabilities they should be targeting. Whereas a blue teamer would take those same scan results and figure out how are we going to prioritize the patching here? How are we going to make sure to identify these critical vulnerabilities and get them patched as soon as possible? So a lot of my job throughout the day, we'll be talking to other people that run systems, making sure they're prioritizing these critical vulnerabilities, especially if these vulnerabilities are being targeted by attackers or there's no malware or exploits available for those vulnerabilities. So once we identify them, we make sure we work really closely with them. And that's a very big portion of it. It's a lot of work to try and do that because there's a lot of systems when you look at a very large organization like City of Los Angeles. So we'll talk a little bit later about how we do that vulnerability management program. We've got Sydney here who's been helping us a lot with automating that process and doing that. But for now, we'll kind of move on here and talk about some of these other things. So another really important thing that we use a lot that a lot of people don't kind of touch on is inventory management. So being able to identify what assets you have, what assets should be or what ports should be open on those ones. So a lot of times we'll use tools like ServiceNow, ticketing systems, we'll have those ones, or GRC systems. But then also there's a lot of tools called configuration management databases. So when you're in a large organization like ours, anytime you make a major change to a system, you like to document it and have a process that you go through where you have maybe like a change management board that reviews that and accepts those ones. So really looking for a configuration management database, that's a lot of times what a blue teamer or security operations center will do to identify, hey, should this port be open and public facing on this server? Or is this something that someone probably accidentally opened? Should they have RDP open to the world that should be being hit by China or things like that? So really we look at that one to get some information about the systems. And of course, one of the most important tools that we use is for logging. Also what's called a SIEM or Security Information and Event Management System. There's a lot of tools out there that can do this nowadays. Some of the big ones in the game would be Splunk, Alien Vaults, Elastic. You can see here we've got some screenshots from Splunk itself. But really what those tools do is they help you fill the gaps. They help you take all those logs, bring them all together, bring all those security events together, and to identify maybe where you have some gaps in your security system and tools. And one of the ways we really use that to identify these gaps and to make sure that we have coverage for a lot of these types of attacks that attackers are using is using something called the MITRE ATT&CK framework. So I'm not going to talk too much about this just because it's a very in-depth topic, but it is something that's very important to us from a security operations center. You'll hear us talking a lot about cybersecurity framework, a lot of different frameworks, but from a defender and from a tool perspective, we really like to look at the attack matrix because this attack matrix gives us information about how attackers would be targeting systems. And it gives us a way to identify and analyze if we have specific gaps in our systems or things that we need to cover. So at the top, you'll see a bunch of different tactics that are in there: initial access, execution, persistence, exfiltration, impact, lateral movement. Really, it moves from the left to the right through how attackers normally target systems. And I'll show you kind of an example of how this looks and how, from a daily kind of perspective, we use this attack matrix. And if you are very curious on it, MITRE has a very thorough website about this, goes into depth of all these different techniques, which are the little blue things in each of those ones. You can see in each specific tactic, there could be anywhere from 10 to 40 plus different techniques in there. And all those techniques, there's sub-techniques and there's specific ways that you can address those techniques and do this stuff. So it's a very big elephant to try and eat. So best thing is to try and eat it one bite at a time. So I just want to take a quick minute here and show you kind of one of these reports that we get. Like this is a very recent report from the threat actor Black Cat or Alpha V. This is very prolific ransomware group. Recently it targeted United Health, one of the largest kind of healthcare type ransomware incidents that we've seen recently. There's been some huge impacts for it. So this is one of the things that we look very closely at. We want to look at how this kind of ransomware group or this threat actor would target our systems here. And then that gives us that information, those tactics that we can look at. So you'll see here, we've got those techniques. So you'll see one of the first techniques that they would do would be phishing for information. So they'll pose as an affiliate company or a help desk person, they'll call in, they'll try and get access to those systems. And then once they get access to those systems, they'll use those compromised accounts to gain access to other systems within the network. They might be targeting things like domain controllers, trying to establish persistence, those type of things. And then you'll also see one of the next steps that they do in here. Oh, the number got kind of messed up here. So the second number one for disable security tools should actually be the fourth step there. Once they get in there and they've established persistence, they want to really disable those security tools. They'll start removing logging, trying to do stuff to make it harder for us to identify that they're there. Then they'll start taking out that data. And then, of course, the last thing being a ransomware group, the last thing they're going to do is start encrypting your data. So if you can identify them earlier on before they gain access to the systems or before they establish that persistence, that's really the best thing. If you can't do that, then you want to get them when they're trying to disable those tools. And if they're already exfiltrating data, you're pretty late to the game, and that's going to be a bad day for the defenders there. I won't go too much in depth into all these things. I think we'll provide these slides afterwards so you guys can look at them and review them. But I mean, these are really good information. These ID numbers are actually correspond to the attack matrix one. I've also got a link to the specific cybersecurity advisory for this threat group at the bottom. But again, very important stuff and really helpful for us from a defender perspective. So we were talking a lot about risk scores or we were talking a lot about vulnerabilities. It's very difficult to do that to prevent these attackers in there. And as we were kind of saying, we want to try and prevent these attacks from happening as early as possible. So we want to stop them at that initial access stage. So before they can get into the systems. So there's a couple of ways to do that. One of them is to make sure we're addressing all the major vulnerabilities before they become exploitable or before they're being able to be targeted by the attackers. So we have a lot of different scanners throughout the city of Los Angeles. As you can imagine, with 43 different departments, some of them much larger, they're running their own scanning tools. It became really important for us to take all these different reports and findings and to centralize it into a central place, what we like to call the department risk score. And then from that department risk score portal or department risk portal where they can look at all those vulnerabilities, we have to really keep in mind that there's two kind of people that are going to be using this tool. We've got the professional people that are looking for those specific vulnerabilities. They want to know how to fix those vulnerabilities, how to patch them. And then we've got the kind of more management level people, maybe less technical or maybe less concerned on how exactly to fix it, but they're more concerned with what is the impact for this and which one's the most important things that I should be talking to my people about or we should be fixing it. So really the way we address this in our vulnerability management system is we created what's called risk scores, and we created two kind of different reports or portals that people would use. For a technical audience, they have a portal they can log into. They can see all these vulnerabilities, they can see all these fixes, they can see all these assets, and they can see how they could kind of improve their score. But then for the non-technical audience, we want to create like an easy to read kind of report where it says, hey, here's your risk score. Here's everyone else's risk score. Here's the risk score we wanted you to be at. And we also want to give them kind of a historical view where they can see how the risk score has changed over time. Has it been increasing? Has it been decreasing? Really kind of make that very simple, very non-complicated for the non-technical audience. But getting that non-technical report and getting that data from our risk score portal is really complicated. It takes a lot of work. So we have spent a lot of time for trying to figure out how to do these risk scores. And then I want to invite up Sydney here to kind of explain some of the ways we've done that.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. So yeah, as how we generate these risk scorecards is we take vulnerability scans from Qualys and Cyber Hygiene, and then we feed that into Kenna, which is the risk score portal that Daniel was talking about. And Kenna basically gives each department their own risk score based off of the vulnerabilities they find and like how likely it is to be exploited. And then the cybersecurity coordinators from each department can log into Kenna and like look into each vulnerability and give examples on how they can mitigate it. And then from there, Splunk pulls the information from Kenna to create our like actual risk scorecards. And then after we have the HTMLs of each different department's risk scorecard, we upload that to Google Drive, and then that gets sent through our email automation script. And basically that script just attaches each risk scorecard onto our emails, and then that gets sent to every department in the city. Before I was here, they were like manually attaching the emails to each, or manually attaching the scorecards to each email, and that would take like 2 or maybe even 3 hours every month. So my first project was to create the automated script that cut that down to like around 5 minutes.
So, I mean, as Sydney was talking about, the automation here really important. When we work in a security operations center, there's a lot of different people that we have here. There's a lot of different tools that we use, and being able to use the automation to be able to kind of focus on all that and to go through it is always very important. So I'm going to kind of wrap it up here because I know we're going a little bit over our time. I want to be respectful of the next speaker here. But before I do, I just want to focus a little bit, putting it all together. So if there's one thing to really take away from this presentation, it's that working in a security operations center, there's a lot of different tools that we use. There's a lot of stuff that we do. So really, we're looking for people that are well diversified. We're looking for a lot of different people that have a lot of different kind of skills. If you're good at Python programming or scripting or doing that kind of it, that's very important for us. If you like looking at logs all day or doing data analysis, that's another big thing that we use a lot of it. So there's a lot of different tools in there. But one of the number one questions I get from a lot of people is, how do I get experience, or how do I find out about these tools? So I just wanted to spend just a couple of minutes real quick just talking about it. So the number one thing I would tell people if they want to get experience with some of these blue team or defender tools is set up a home lab. It could be a very simple kind of home lab the way I have it shown there, where you have just your regular modem, and then connected up to that, you have a managed switch, which has like a mirrored port on there. And then that uses something like an old PC that you might have lying around the house. You can put something called Security Onion on it. Security Onion is a very common tool. It has a lot of open source tools inside of there that can do a lot of the same stuff that we were talking about here. And it can give you a lot of that kind of experience to get started in there. Some of the tools that it has in there, it's got something for endpoint detection, log management. It has a tool called Wazaa, Elastic Agents. That'll get you experience with getting those logs, looking at those logs. It has things for seeing those security information event management tools. So it takes all those alerts, all those logs, it puts it in a way that you could search for it. It has some tools to get you started with malware analysis, things like CyberChef. It has vulnerabilities through Wazaa, assuming you enable it. Sometimes you might have to look deeper into each of these tools to figure out different options and different things you can do in them, because they don't always do it out of the box. And then of course, intrusion detection tools, looking at snort, Suricata rules, using something like Zeek, which is formerly called Bro. It'll give you a lot of information about there. And you can see a couple of dashboards that we have here from Security Onion, but really that's what I would recommend is get some experience, try playing with the tools, putting those on your resume when you're applying for those jobs. Because a lot of times they're going to look for those specific keywords or tools when they're looking for those ones. And if you're a new student, you can say, yeah, I don't have a lot of experience working in an enterprise setting with these tools. However, I have a lot of experience running in the home lab. I've played with it. I understand these concepts and things. And those things normally are enough to get people like, okay, I should give this person a try. They may not have the experience, but they have some experience with these tools and they understand the concepts or they understand how they would work. So with that, I'm going to go ahead, give it over to Tim here. I think we have a little bit of time for questions and answers here.
Well, thanks, Daniel, Sydney. So we want to respect the next speaker time too. So, but I think we can take some question if you have some questions, a couple of questions. Do you guys have any questions? Got to have some questions. No? Oh, okay.
Like two questions. First one would be like, what would you say the biggest differences are security wise? Let's say like the private sector, like government, cyber attacks that you may not see government.
Yeah, so public sector and private sector, basically, if you look at it, go back to Daniel's slides, from the security perspective, what you're doing is about the same. You are from the blue team, you defense, right? You implement tools, maintain tools, threat hunting, cyber threat intelligence analysis, that kind of, those are the same. But from the attacker end, this might be different, right? They are on a different purpose. From the public sector, we have critical infrastructure. So especially like you will have a state sponsor type of more targeting on the critical infrastructure. So that's, you won't see a lot in the private sector. In the private sector, you will see a lot of IP, right? So intellectual property theft, but for the public sector will be more on the citizens' data and then sensitive data, also the geopolitical stuff, and then also the public image damaging. So so different motive, but from your blue team perspectives, you need same skills on all these. So attacker might have a change on their intent and motive, but from defense side is the same tools, same skills.
The second question is that I currently actually work with ITA.
Oh wow.
That's about how would you recommend I get kind of maneuver into the security side? I'm kind of like,
Sure. I mean, anytime you can talk to me, you come 14th floor, my office is always open, and you can talk to Daniel here, Cesar here, and then I think we have HR and also our customer service bureau. They have like periodic student professional opening, so you want to pay attention to that too. But anytime if you have any question on cybersecurity, feel free to come to talk to us. We are more than happy to talk to you guys. We need a lot of like students and skilled employees like you guys. Any more questions?
Yeah, I mean, we do run a lot of metrics on that, and we look at those ones. I mean, truthfully, if there's more people, it doesn't always mean that their scores are lower. A lot of times when we're looking at the scores, we weight those scores based off of the exploitability, the severity of those ones. So, I mean, if there's people that actually do the patching and do that stuff, we do see a difference in that. But the reality is the larger departments may have more security people, but the reality is the system folks and the people actually doing the patching, those are the people that are fixing those vulnerabilities and doing that stuff. So it's not always the security people. Like I don't go in and actually patch people's systems. I just tell them, hey, we need to apply this patch immediately because these attackers are targeting it and it's important. So really what we look at is we look at those ones and we prioritize them, and that helps us when we're looking at them because we prioritize the most important vulnerabilities. And if there's something that, was recently released that's being targeted specifically by ransomware actors, I'll reach out to specific people. And that's really why that CMDB system comes into play, because when I need to figure out who's running specific software or systems, I gotta go to that inventory system, I gotta go to that CMDB to figure out, hey, who owns a system that might be running like JetBrains, TeamCity, or any of that type of stuff, so that I can talk to those people and say, hey, you need to apply this patch immediately for these things.
So from my experience as a CISO, always remember, more tools not equal to better protection. Most cybersecurity budgets not equal to better security program. Like I say, it's always strategy plus the execution. That's the key. Okay, so I think that's all time we have, but we will share the slide with all of you. We will leave it with Sydney, and feel free to reach out to us and if you have any question or any interest in cybersecurity. Thank you very much.
Okay. This one. Okay. Thank you so much, Tim, Daniel, and Cesar, for coming to talk today. If you have any